Businesses thrive by knowing customer insights because today's insights are tomorrow's facts. At iResearch, we live and breathe insights. And despite searching high and low, we were unable to find a customer insights podcast that answers one of the most important questions in business. Why do customers do what they do? So we launched one. Hi, I'm your host, Darshan Mehta.
I'd like to introduce you to Lisa Curtis. Her journey reflects her dedication to promoting nutritious and sustainable food products while supporting small farmers globally. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Kuli Kuli Foods, a company that specializes in superfood powders and snacks made from the sustainable superfood ingredient called Moringa. The company's products include nutrition bars, green powder, smoothie mixes, and wellness shots made from Moringa. It's a plant rich in protein, potassium, calcium, and vitamin. She discovered Moringa while volunteering with the Peace Corps in Niger, West Africa, and launched Kuli Kuli in 2013 to raise awareness about this nutritious ingredient. Kuli Kuli products are available in 11,000 U.S. stores and are sourced sustainably from small farmers worldwide. She started the company with only a modest $2,000 investment and has successfully scaled it through innovative strategies and partnerships, including securing investments from companies like Kellogg, 1894 Capital. She has now raised over $10 million to fuel Kuli Kuli's growth and is on her way to even greater success. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So please tell me the journey and the aha moments that have led you to discovering this superfood and starting Kuli Kuli.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. So I think, the first aha moment was for me when I was in the Peace Corps. So as a volunteer in Niger, West Africa, as you mentioned, placed in a really rural village with no electricity, no running water, not a lot of healthy food. And as a vegetarian, I was starting to feel weak off a diet of mostly rice. And so I started to ask some of the women in my village, what can I eat that would give me more nutrients? And they literally pulled some moringa leaves off a tree, kind of like the tree you see in my background. And they mixed it into a popular local peanut snack called Kuli Kuli and said, here, eat this. It'll make you feel better. I had never heard of moringa. I had never thought to eat tree leaves. Seemed a little weird, but trusted these women. And so I did it. And I started eating this Kuli Kuli moringa snack every day. And it had the most profound impact on my health of anything I've ever tried. So it just gave me more energy. Moringa is so nutritious, as you mentioned, high in protein, calcium, iron, vitamins. It also has some incredible medicinal properties. It's got all these great anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, anti-cancer properties that we're starting to see more and more studies come out. But for me, the main thing was it gave me more energy. It gave me the nutrients I needed to feel good. And so I started, asking the women in my village, how do we get more people to grow and eat this plant? And they said what I think any farmer anywhere in the world will say of, we're not going to grow a crop unless we can sell it. So why don't you help us sell it? So
That's amazing.
I guess the aha was like, wow, this plant is amazing. And I guess I'm going to go sell Moringa. And so that was over 10 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. But I want to take a step back further. What prompted you to go into the Peace Corps? Because that's not an easy thing to do either, right?
Yeah. So I took a college class called Politics in Africa. So I was a politics and environmental studies major and felt like, what we hear in the news, sort of media, general perception of the African continent is so false in so many ways that there's so many amazing countries and cultures and, so much richness that I wanted to go see it for myself. I knew I wanted to go somewhere in Africa. And I also, as someone who was really interested in international development and environmental sustainability, I really wanted to understand, like, how do you pull people out of poverty in a way that benefits and doesn't destroy the environment? And so, Peace Corps is great about sending you into a rural village. You live pretty close to the people that you're there to serve. So I was paid a full $20 a month in Niger. So really, learned a lot about how to live off the grid and how to live in a rural village. And, I received so much more from that experience than I ever gave back. So I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to repay all the gifts that people there gave me.
That's amazing. So I'm curious, what was the feeling and what were the aha moments you had as soon as you went to Africa for the very first time, got off the plane, landed there? It was a completely different environment than you've ever been in. What are some of the aha moments you had in that instance?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing, well, getting off the plane, I think you immediately are like, Africa is not a safari. There's not like animals running around. Niger is a very poor country. Still, like Niamey feels like a city. It's not, you know, not any different than, many like rural cities you would see in other parts of the world.
Mhm.
And then I think when I was living in my village, the biggest thing I realized was just how much people really invest in each other and in community. And Hausa, which is the local language, there's like there's like 10 minutes of greetings. It's just customary to ask people, "How are you? How's your children? How are your cows? How are your crops?" You gotta go through all these different lines of just, understanding how people are before you move on. So my village was, very small, 2,000 people, and I worked in the health center on one side of it, and I lived here, and it would literally take me 30 to 45 minutes to cross the village when it should have been, a 5-minute walk, just because you had to stop and talk and chat. And um, so that the kind of the power of community and just that incredible warmth was amazing to me.
You probably got to know all the animals by first name as well, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, all of the goats that were running around, everything.
But I think there's something really nice about that, right? I mean, it really makes you, I think, better connected to each other and the environment around you, and just I think it is really lends to the connection of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think connection is the right word. You're not kind of like holed house in your house in the suburbs, staring at your phone, ignoring your family at the dinner table. You're like fully present, very much alive and engaging with the world in a way that I think is a good lesson for
Yeah,
Americans to be.
yeah. So you're there, you start realizing that you're not feeling well, right? And you're not getting the right nutrition, and then you come across this moringa. And how long did it take before you started feeling a difference? You started eating moringa.
Yeah, it's about a week and a half, because I remember being like, should I keep eating this?" Like I actually really like the flavor of moringa. It's kind of like a green earthiness, and the time I was just like craving greens and craving vegetables, and mixed with this Kuli Kuli peanut snack. It was a really nice combo. But I kept being like, "Is this working? I don't know." But then I was like, I'm starting to feel better, and then I'd say about a week and a half, I was like, "Oh, I really feel better. Like I'm getting out of bed, ready to start the day." Whereas before I just felt so lethargic and just like really tired all the time.
And so when did you realize that you're going to become an entrepreneur and actually launch a product and go into business? Because that's quite a difference than your pursuit of
Yeah.
being in the Peace
Yeah.
Corps.
So there's a wild twist in this story, where I was putting together this grant proposal, because originally in my idea, this was just kind of a nonprofit thing that I was going to, get some grants and help some of the women in my village, get be able to plant more moringa. We were going to do like a demonstration garden at the health center and then sell it in the local village, in the local market. And then there was a terrorist attack in Niger. This was in 2011,
Mm,
and Peace Corps overnight was evacuated. And
mm,
so we were forced to leave everything within 48 hours. So if you can imagine just like packing up all of your stuff, saying goodbye to all these people who had like basically become my family while I was there. I had
sure.
so many, really close friends and connections. And then we were told, we were taken to Morocco and then sort of let loose and said, "We don't have anywhere for you to go. So you can go home and you can then restart somewhere else in a different country." And I was like,
Mm,
"I don't want to go home. I don't want to do that." And I actually had a family friend who was getting married in New Delhi, India,
mm,
and I had been invited to the wedding, and I was like, at the time, no way I'm going from Niger to New Delhi. But I suddenly found myself without plans. So I was like, hey, can I still come to your wedding? And he was like, sure. So I ended up going to New Delhi, and that's where I really saw the power of social enterprise. I think
Mm.
India, so much more than America, you just really see this incredible entrepreneurial spirit, and you see so much of just the disparities, right? It's like
Yeah.
the people working, the slum next to the mansions. It's like
Yep.
it's just there. It's in front of you in like such a bigger way. And I met so many incredible social entrepreneurs who are really doing amazing work to help, close that gap. And so that's when I had sort of my next aha moment of like, oh, I don't want to just start a Moringa nonprofit. Like, I want to start a Moringa business because that's
Hmm.
the way to really make this sustainable and to grow this. And so yeah, well, I would say me at the time, I started blogging about it, and my friend from high school was reading what I was writing, and he was like, "This is kind of cool." So my friend Jordan, who's now my co-founder, I roped him in through my blog, and when I got home back to the U.S., I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make this happen."
Now, had your co-founder had Moringa at that time, or he not had
No.
Moringa?
No,
Okay.
no, he had never tried moringa. He had never seen a moringa tree. He just thought that the idea of like, connecting people across cultures through food. I think the way I kept thinking about it was, 10 years ago, nobody heard of quinoa.
Hmm.
A few years ago, like we were talking about chia pets. We weren't talking about chia seeds, like acai. A lot of people don't know about like, why not moringa and other climate smart, sustainable superfoods, particularly
Sure.
those from the African continent. Like, how do we create these new supply chains in a way that really empowers communities where the products are grown, and then also transforms the health of Americans? Because there's so many amazing plants in the world that
Sure.
Americans don't know about and they don't eat. And so that was where I got really fired up about this idea. And I think I roped Jordan in on this, like, oh, this is a cool idea. And so when I got home, we, then tried to figure out like, okay, how do we bring this idea to life? This is a crazy idea, right? To source this sort of like earthy, bitter green, no one in America has ever heard of it, to get it from Africa, where so many of our investors are like, you're going to get a high quality food grade product from Africa. And we're like, yes, we are. And to be able to then introduce that to the American public in a way that it really met with their palates. It sounded pretty impossible, but we were determined to make it happen.
And so then you went back to Niger to set everything up?
No, first I went to America to
Okay.
see if there was a market. Well, at that point I'd run out of money, I was getting paid $20 a month in Niger. I was sort of living off my meager savings while I was living in India, working for this impact investment firm. So getting just like a little stipend. And then I came back home and started trying to figure out like how do I source moringa to the US? How do I test it? I think for me, I believed so strongly that it would work, but everyone around me was really skeptical. So I was like, okay, before I, go all in, like let me just see if there's a there. And so that's when, I got a day job. Jordan had a day job, but nights, weekends, we would meet and we would try to figure out, okay, how do we test this idea? And so initially we started getting moringa to here, which sounds easier than it actually was. We made a bunch of products in our home kitchen, tested it out on friends and family, decided initially to launch with a bar because we figured people associate nutrition and
Hmm.
energy with an energy bar. And so we started making bars by hand, like imagine all day in a commercial kitchen, like making little
Hmm.
bars on a Saturday, all day Sunday, testing them at farmers markets, and then going back to our day jobs on Monday. So it was a lot. It was a lot of work. But we had kind of an amazing break when in one of those farmers market, we were sampling, surveying customers, trying to understand what people liked, didn't like. one of the people who sampled happened to work for Whole Foods. Uh, it had just been, shopping at their local farmers market. And so, she basically said to us, like, look, this is really cool. You should apply for this program to get in front of a buyers, like their local foraging program. We got in front of the buyer. It remains the best meeting I've ever had in my life. Best sales meeting ever. We came we came, super prepared, like over prepared, didn't sleep the night before. We got there with our little handmade moringa bars. This buyer takes one look at them and says, "I love moringa. I saw it on Dr. Oz. It's so good for you. We don't have anything like moringa. Let's do it." And I was like, "Wow, is it all gonna be this easy?" The answer was no. It was never gonna be that easy again. But it was an amazing first break.
How had she been exposed to moringa at that time?
So Moringa was on Dr. Oz way back in
Oh,
like 2013. He talked about it for kind of this like weight loss, diabetes management properties. There's been some interesting studies that have come out over the years,
mhm.
and it had sort of like a moment of fame, and it was enough of a moment that this Whole Foods buyer saw it. So,
Interesting.
at the time there wasn't much moringa at all in the US, so it really
Mhm.
didn't go anywhere. But it was enough to give us our first big break.
Hey, that's amazing. So do you
Yeah.
actually so you they have farms growing this in Africa and then you harvest it and do you bring it as a is it a fruit or a vegetable? What's it considered?
So it's a vegetable. So yeah, the leaf, kind of like the ones over there. And so we do source directly from small farmers. So basically, the first stage of processing is all done in country, where they wash the leaves, dry the leaves, mill them into the powder. We then receive that powder here in the U.S. We then sell it as a organic moringa powder, and we also add it to our blends and to our gummies.
Mm,
So if you're, walking down the aisles of, call it Whole Foods, you would find us in that superfood, green food supplement set. So in with like, Amazing Grass and Avita's kind of other superfoods.
So how much was it a challenge as the skeptics were thought maintaining quality of product coming out of Africa? How much of a challenge was that?
The interesting thing that we found is it has been it- the quality varies less by geography than it does by the farming operation.
Hmm,
So Kuli Kuli now sources from 7 countries. Most of those are on the African continent. We also do source some from India and some from Ecuador. But the quality challenges are, generally happen with like at the farm level and less geographic. But over time, we've gotten a lot better at them. I mean, I think, we've specialized really
right.
hard in how do you figure out how to grow the highest quality moringa in the world? How do you process it in the right way? We take a lot of cues from green tea. I think the thing that people don't often think about is, tea is all one plant: black tea, green tea,
Mhm,
matcha. And so yeah, right. It blows your mind.
right.
And it's just about like when you harvest and how you process it. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we get the moringa equivalent of ceremonial grade matcha? How do we pluck those fresh young leaves, process in a way that really preserves the nutrients, but also kills off any
Mhm,
pathogens, and then sell it here. So we have some incredible partners who we've been working with for going on, 7+ years
mhm.
doing this.
So do you find that the moringa that's in Africa versus Ecuador and India, is it the same or actually it might be different species of moringa?
It's actually the same. It's all Moringa oleifera. So there's a few different genuses of Moringa, but the one that most people grow these days is Moringa oleifera, and it's called the sweet Moringa.
Mm,
Um, so there's another type of Moringa that actually originated in Ethiopia that isn't consumed as widely.
mm, interesting. I suspect you might be one of the biggest suppliers of moringa or buyers of moringa now.
We are the largest purchaser of moringa in the world, actually.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. So it is a funny thing where it's like big fish, small pond kind of thing where people who know moringa know of us generally. People who don't are like, what's moringa? Like, cool, you're number one, but what is that?
So how much of a challenge is that still to educate people on Moringa?
A challenge, but less of a challenge than it was 10 years ago.
Sure.
I think the thing that we've really figured out, and maybe this is another aha moment for us, was that we spent so much time trying to educate people. This is what moringa is. This is what it does. This is how it's grown. It's a leaf, not a fruit. And then we sort of realized like we needed to stop trying to do so much around moringa as an ingredient, but talk more about moringa as a benefit,
Mhm.
and make it very clear by product what the product is for. So if you look at our product line now, we have some really cool gummies and blends with names like Gut Bliss for gut health, Green Power for, getting all your greens in and getting energy. We have Mood Magic, which is, made with cacao and hibiscus, which you can also notice in my little food forest here. So this is all products we grow.
Mhm.
Um, and and really trying to make it really clear, why should you consume this? What is the benefit on your body and on your health? And keeping to that original mission, the reason we called the company Kuli Kuli and not Moringa Moringa was, to me, that Kuli Kuli snack and the, Moringa on top of it was really my gateway to true like transformation of health. And so how are we that gateway to transforming health through these climate smart, community grown
Mhm.
superfoods? So we've come a long way.
So does Kuli Kuli have a meaning? What's the meaning of Kuli Kuli?
So Kuli Kuli is that snack. So is that original snack when I was in the Peace Corps. It's
Just
a
the
it's a
name of
name
that
that,
snack. Okay.
yeah, just the name of that snack, and that was a thing that is sort of used as like the medium for moringa. And so we think of ourselves as, the kind of the medium for these farmers to be able to access the US market, to be able to bring these incredible superfoods to Americans.
Mm. So how transformed is the village that you really started in now?
Yeah. It's been amazing to see the transformation. I actually leave this Saturday, going on a trip to visit some of our partners in Uganda and Tanzania and Zimbabwe. So I'll have more updates next week. But for the purposes of this, I would say that, the biggest thing we see is that people have extra income that they can use to do things that they've wanted to do but not had the budget for, specifically better food for their families. We hear
Mhm.
that quite often. Sending their daughters to school. Often, if they don't have a lot of money, they'll send their sons to school. They won't send their daughters. Um, and then also buying small things that can enable their life in a big way. So we hear a lot about sewing machines to start a tailoring business, or
Mhm.
buying a cow to be able to sell milk, buying chickens to be able to start a hen business. So I think it's pretty cool to be able to make that little spark in someone's
Oh yeah,
life
I'm
that
sure.
enable
Yeah.
them to do even more.
I'm sure you must be a local celebrity there now.
Yeah. I think, to me, it's not about us. Like
I know. I
we,
mean, but it's nice to be
we
recognized, but
yeah,
still, that wasn't your goal. I understand, but I mean,
yeah.
I can see. I mean that said because you've really transformed a lot of lives. And we're talking, not just the people you met, but even their kids now, and it's gonna keep. You can see it's gonna keep the domino effect going.
It's incredible, but I would say that the people who've done the true transformation are the folks on the ground who are
Right.
running these cooperatives, running these organizations. Like, I think of them as the celebrities because they're the ones who, are doing the hard work. I tell them all the time, like, you are growing, and processing the highest quality moringa in the world. It is my honor to be able to sell it.
Well, all this goes back to the first thing we talked about. It takes a village. You can't just, it's not just one person, right? But you happen to be in a position that you recognize it. And then you also knew about a market where you could connect it to. And so that was a spark that, led to all these other things. And that's what's needed. But at the end of the day, of course, it takes a whole village to do this, all the way down to the goats, the cows, everything, right?
Yeah.
So, how well is now Moringa accepted in the US? Is it, or still
Yeah.
there's a greater opportunity for still more recognition and people to recognize its use?
Definitely always opportunity for more. I will say that we have had some great recognition recently. We are on the Whole Foods list of top 10 trends twice. I think we're the only brand that has been on there twice that I know of,
Wow.
just in the past few years, 2020 and 2022. We were featured on Good Morning America for being a top trend. We've had just a lot of kind of interest and enthusiasm around Moringa, and I think that's translated in some really great growth on shelf. Like we really do see that our products are selling quite well. And the thing that I think is most exciting is if you go into Walmart, which is not necessarily known as, foodie capital of America, you'll see our our pure moringa powder and our blends and our energy shakes on shelf. And our pure moringa powder is the best selling superfood within that set at Walmart. So
That's amazing.
come a long way.
So are you still focused on the US market, or have you actually looked at other international markets as well?
We are very focused on the US market right now. I think we will expand internationally at some point, but we really, kind of have our blinders on, want to focus first and foremost on really nailing the US and making sure that we've built out a really big brand presence here before we stretch ourselves too thin.
Hmm. So moringa's in India, but I've never heard it being used much in India. Is it used in India a lot, moringa?
Have you heard of the drumstick tree?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. So that's what
Yeah, so
they.
the drumstick
Okay,
tree is moringa. It's the same tree. So it's generally the seed pod that is used
I
in
see.
sambar and curries. Um, and then we have seen more and more folks using the leaves as well. So it's catching on in popularity, particularly in the South. I would say one of our main suppliers is based in Hyderabad, and
Uh-huh.
we was just there in November, and you see a lot more moringa
In-
being consumed.
Interesting. And how about in Ecuador? How is it used in Ecuador, since you say you source it from there as well?
Yeah. So in Ecuador, we tend to see it more in like kind of eaten fresh or prepared with like sometimes with like chicken or pork. The Philippines too. So it's the national vegetable of the Philippines, and you see it a lot in chicken
Hmm.
dishes. In all different, varies a lot by country in Africa, but you'll see often moringa leaves put into like called a leaf sauce is sort of the direct translation. So just added in with
Hmm.
like some tomato paste and then put in with, like often what's called tuo, so like a millet sort of pudding.
Hmm. Is there also moringa tea?
Yeah, yeah. So moringa, you can make a tea out of it. It's nice. It gives you kind of just a boost of energy without the caffeine. So
Interesting.
it's my like late afternoon go to is a moringa latte, which tastes basically identical to a matcha latte, but you get that like caffeine free energy.
Interesting. So all of this has led, I believe, to another aha moment, because you have a forthcoming book coming out called Happiness is a New Success. Tell me about the title and what led you to write this book.
Yeah, so I don't have a book coming out yet.
Okay.
Um, but I had a Forbes article that went kind of viral about like happiness is a new success. And then
Uh-huh.
I did start working on a book and wrote a bunch of chapters. This was like my COVID project, but put it on pause. I have not yet finished or published it.
So tell me about the article. What led you to write the article? Happiness is the new success.
Yeah. So I wrote the article Happiness is a New Success really out of my belief and something I see so much among millennials and other young people that we really want to have purpose in our lives and want to have, want our jobs to fulfill us in so many ways. And so
Hmm.
I think it's something I see you know, of young people as a whole, of the people who work for me. And really, as we think about, traditional markers of success, so much of it has changed in this economy. It's way harder to buy a house than it used to. A lot more people are waiting a lot longer to getting married. And so we put so much more of ourselves into our jobs. And so
Hmm.
really thinking critically about what kind of job you want. And, if you can't find a job that fits you, like go start one, create your own.
So what are the keys to happiness?
It's a big question. $1 million
But
question.
I can tell you thought about it.
Yeah. So I think the keys to happiness vary a lot by person. So I'll frame it as, the keys to happiness for me are community. I think we
Hmm.
talked a little bit about that earlier. It's
Hmm.
something I read a lot of books about, like longevity and how to, live for a long time, but with a high quality of life. And one of the reoccurring themes is community and being really engaged and
Hmm.
active in your community. So that's something I think a lot about and put a lot of energy into. I also think having a higher purpose, and a higher purpose can mean different things for different people. I think for some people their higher purpose is their kids, or their higher purpose is, their neighborhood, or, for me, I think my higher purpose is my job and what I'm trying to do with these amazing superfoods. And then doing that with people who you like and respect.
Hmm.
I am always seeking to hire people who are better and smarter than I am, because I think when you are around people like that, it just raises the IQ of the whole
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah. But that requires a certain level of security and confidence too, right?
Totally, totally. Yes. And it it does require kind of being comfortable with who you are. And I think I I talk a lot about how I don't know a lot of things, but I'm really good at asking for help. And that
Hmm.
in some ways is my number one skill of knowing, like, hey, I'm stuck here and I need guidance.
Having been an entrepreneur, what are the three things you think all entrepreneurs should possess in terms of a skill set?
Grit. So I'm a big believer in the idea that businesses don't fail, founders quit. I
Hmm.
think grit is the thing you need to keep going.
Yep.
Um, I think confidence. You need to believe and be confident in yourself, in your vision, that you can convince and excite employees, investors, customers. I think that is so so important. I put it as maybe a combination of confidence and passion. Um, and then I think you need to have a strong foundation. Like I think I'm very open and acknowledging, like, I have a really great support system. I have a lot of support from my family, from my husband. I think a lot about, like, why aren't more people entrepreneurs? And I think some of that is our society doesn't give everyone an equally solid foundation from which to start a business.
Yep. So I'm curious, has your purpose now changed? Now that you've had success, you've done quite well. What's your purpose now? Has it changed and evolved from what it started out?
It has, in the sense that I think part of my goal now is to pay it forward. So I
Hmm.
spend an hour to 2 hours every week, generally Fridays. I like block some time on my calendar talking to other entrepreneurs, particularly women or people of color who maybe sometimes don't have that confidence in themselves to be able to go and launch this business, and just trying to support and share where I failed, share where I've learned. And then I think my purpose with Kuli Kuli continues to be, like, how do we help communities who are growing these amazing superfoods unlock access to the US market? How do we create products that are delicious and transform the health of the people who consume them? So that purpose has remained the same.
So I'm curious, how are you balancing the dual purposes you have? One, you want to have a business that helps communities grow and thrive, but at the same time, you're running a business where you're answering to investors and their main focus is growth and profit. And I'm sure sometimes there's a clash between the two. So how have you learned to resolve that and balance that?
I think the first thing is to make sure that you structure the company in the right way. So I was very clear from the beginning that we were going to have a 5-person board, and there's only going to be one investor seat available. So our largest investor, Kellogg, has that board seat, but we control the rest of the board. And
Hmm.
we also set up our company such that we are a benefit corporation. So in the same way there's like an LLC and a C corp, there's actually a legal structure that says, hey, we put profit on an equal footing with people and planet. And so our purpose is really embedded into our legal DNA.
Mhm.
And I think part of it, you're right, is becoming profitable. It's taken a long time. You know, consumer packaged good food is not an easy industry, but we are excited that we are now finally very close to being fully profitable.
Mhm. What's on the horizon for you? What's your next interest? Are you looking for the next superfood? Are you looking for new ways to use moringa? What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah. So I think the exciting thing for us is we are, as we speak, launching 4 new products that are
Mhm.
actually made without moringa. So they are made with some really cool ingredients, including baobab, which is this super iconic tree, grows all over Africa, produces a fruit that is amazingly nutritious and hydrating. And I'm actually on Saturday leaving to Zimbabwe, like I mentioned, to go see a baobab harvest and see how it's grown and processed. So super excited about that. We're also using hibiscus. We're also using cacao. So our idea is to really create that food forest, so to speak, where you can have regenerative agriculture, all the plants working together, a living system, and that we can incorporate that into our products.
Exciting, exciting. How did you discover those other superfoods?
Yeah. So I would say I didn't discover anything. I just learned from the folks who we work with and spend a lot of time asking them, what plants are they excited about? Like what plants do they feel like make a real difference in their health? How are they using these different superfoods? And then understanding from there how we can incorporate them into our products.
Do you still carve out time to go spend time in village and have these conversations with, people that really know these things that have been passed down from the ages?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'll be doing for the next 2 weeks.
Nice, nice.
Mm.
So if you could have lunch or dinner with anyone in the food industry, superfood or anything, who would it be and why?
So I think I would have lunch or dinner with Jacqueline Novogratz. She is the founder of the Acumen Fund. She's really a pioneer in this impact investing space. And
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of the folks in food have gotten to know and have been lucky enough to become a bit of a leader there, but doing more international development work is something that we are trying to do more and more of through our supply chain, the more profitable we become. And so I'd love to just have dinner with her and pick her brain.
Sounds good. Well, I'm really excited to see what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next chapter unfold after your visit. Sounds like you're going to come back with some really interesting and exciting things for you, that your company, and your customers.
Thank you. Yes, we are excited.
Well, thank you very much for being a guest on Getting to AHA.
Thank you for having me.
Getting to AHA was brought to you by iResearch. To find out more about us, head to iResearch.com and make sure to search for Getting to AHA in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. And don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening.